Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to get things going. My name is Jonathan Termier, and I am plugging in from the Grace Group's Northeast office. Quick background, I've been working with the Grace Group for 5 years, coming up on 6 years actually. Starting off as a grant writer and working in several different capacities, helping out with capital campaigns and a lot of online campaigns. I've worked hand in hand with Dan Rodriguez, our guest today, and I get to work with the best team in the world, our grant writing team, and I work with Boys and Girls Clubs out here on the East Coast, and I also work with a few Boys and Girls Clubs on the West Coast as well. I'm going to introduce Grace Sanchez-Hagan, the Grace of the Grace Group, as she's going to give a little history of who we are, what we're doing. What we're going to cover today, we're going to hear from Dan Rodriguez, an executive director of the Boys and Girls Club of Brea, Placentia, and Yorba Linda. We're also going to hear from Chelsea Bender, a longtime grant writing veteran, has experience raising money for Boys and Girls Clubs in the greater New York City area, but also in other regions of the United States. So without further ado, I can't wait to introduce you all to Grace. Grace, thank you for joining us today, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. Thank you all for joining us today. For those who know me in a personal way, I love hospitality and I love being able to welcome people. So I imagine this, you all in my home, and welcoming you to this beautiful, wonderful webinar that we have today. I started this company 13 years ago with a passion and a desire to help worthy causes be able to gather the resources that they need in order to be able to do the work that they have been called and are committed to doing. And we've been working with Boys and Girls Clubs now for over 10 years, and it truly is a privilege. It is one of our greatest honors to be able to work with such worthy organizations that are really impacting the next generation. So with no further ado, again, it's an honor and a privilege to be with you. We realize that time is a commodity that we always are in need of more time, and we appreciate your willingness to carve some of your time out to be with us. We hope that you will take away some nuggets of information that will be able to help you in what you're doing. That is our mission and our purpose for today's webinar. Again, thank you all. I would like to again give a shout out to the Greater Houston team and all of our other Boys and Girls Clubs that are with us today. And Jonathan, I'm going to pass it back to you so that we can hear a little bit of our good friend Dan Rodriguez, who we've had the privilege and the honor to be able to work with and to co-labor together. So thank you again. Jonathan, back to you.
Thank you, Grace. And yes, I forgot to mention a big shout out to the Houston office. They won the first in line prize. They dialed in a little early today, but thank you all again, really, for joining us and jumping on early. We'll make sure Grace mails out that first in line prize. So thanks again, Grace. It's an honor to put these types of webinars together. Really at the core of what we're looking to do is to help you do more with your efforts. You all are the reason why we get to do this kind of work. The club executive directors, the fundraising teams, you all go out and find the resources so that we can do programs that are greatly impacting future generations. So I want to introduce you to somebody that I've had the privilege of working with very closely. He is a longtime club veteran and has tremendous leadership and vision, and he's going to share a little bit with you all on what he sees are kind of trends in this space. He's going to talk a little bit about how we've worked together and how we've been able to help his club. And if there are any questions that you have specifically for Dan or at any point in this webinar, you can type those into the comment section of the GoToMeeting, and we will we'll review those at the end of this webinar. So Dan, I'm excited to introduce you to this great group of people joining us today from around the country. Dan Rodriguez, the floor is yours.
Good morning and good afternoon to folks in Houston. I deem my pleasure just to get on the phone here. I share my experience as a board president and as a CEO for the club out here. I have since, just a quick update, I've since left the club a month ago, 2 months ago now, and worked with the LA County Business Federation to continue development work. And my 6-year stint there in Brea was one that was accentuated with these folks from the Grace Group to help me for the last, I guess, 3.5, 4 years get program funds, foundation funds, one-on-one, the classic one-on-one gifts from folks. So the mentoring and the process I was in the middle of. So I hope to share that experience more than anything when in light of the donor fatigue, in light of the looming, what folks say in California, the looming recession, we circled the wagons with our development team and, for that matter, everyone on our team to come up with some of the strategies that the Grace Group in turn helped fund. So I really look into the questions because I'm the kind of guy that just cut to the skinny and what are those questions that are burning that more, as we hear in the club movement, that keep you up at night, covering payroll, covering operations. So I'm, for 2 minutes, that's me, and open to more question and answer.
Thank you so much, Dan. That's amazing. Jonathan, should we move on over and begin with having Chelsea walk us through? I will let you guide us today.
Wonderful. Thank you, Grace, and thank you, Dan. I think your input in the question and answer is going to be just really enlightening. You have the first-hand experience sitting from the executive director's chair. What we're able to do is we're able to pour through your financials, pour through your budgeting, the structure in which you allocate funds for programs. And with that information, we're able to come alongside you and bring ideas for new grant opportunities. We're able to build budgets and do a lot of that heavy lifting for specific grants. And with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to Chelsea Bender, who has raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for boys and girls clubs in the greater New York region, but she's well over the million marks for the other development work that she does as well. She is a rock star, and very excited to turn the floor over to Chelsea, and she's going to provide really the core value of this webinar. Thank you, Chelsea.
Chelsea, are you with us? Maybe on the...
I'm right here. Thank you. I'm happy to take it over for the next few minutes. Our goal for this portion of the presentation is to discuss a few grant writing strategies that have proven successful for the clubs that we work with. Boys and Girls Club is a nationally recognized brand, and as you know, that can be very impactful in fundraising, but it can also create some challenges in setting one club apart from another. So in this presentation, we'll share some of the ways we do that, highlighting what makes a particular club unique and meaningful in its community. We hope these ideas might benefit your clubs as well, or perhaps give you a starting point to look at grants in new or different ways. Before I launch into some specific ideas, I'd like to provide some background on the successful proposals that we've developed and written. You'll see on your screen a sampling of programs and projects that we've received funding for. The first few apply to most, if not all, clubs, and likely yours are included here. General operating support, of course, STEM services. Some clubs also operate STEAM programming. We've secured funding for both areas, and of course, Triple Play. We'll touch on how we set these national programs apart from club to club in just a moment. Moving down the list, some of the more specific club-specific projects that we've helped to build and ultimately fund include models of services for targeted age groups, a Best Buy Teen Tech Center, playground refurbishment, and a specialized charter school that is housed in a clubhouse and operated by club management. As I said, that's just a sampling. We hope that gives you some context about the types of proposals we're discussing here. Now to move on to some of the specific strategies that we utilize. Your club might already do one, two, or all of these to some degree. If these don't apply, we hope they might spark conversation among your grant writing team. So to begin, one of the most successful methods we used, this technique begins before we start to write. It's all about uniquely packaging services that exist in the club. So instead of submitting a request simply for net smarts or Girls Who Code, for example, which foundations likely see fairly often, we bundle these and other services to develop a model program. These model programs are different from club to club, and they are a blend of Boys and Girls Club of America programming, as well as that club's own unique strategies and services. Please keep in mind these aren't new programs per se. There aren't any additional funding or staffing needs. It's really just a new way of presenting what exists in the club already to foundations so that when they're reviewing our proposal, foundations immediately see what makes that club services unique. I'll give one example. One club we work with was fundraising for services for their elementary school age members. So for them, we created a program called Rising Stars. And in this case, STARS stands for Science, Technology, and Reading. Within proposals, we talked about Triple Play, Brain Gain, and other Boys and Girls Club of America programs that those members engage in. But first, we highlighted other things that make that club unique. A literacy mentorship component with kids and teens, and usage of after-school Kids Lit and Science Explorer curriculum. So after packaging and presenting these services a bit differently, more cohesively, we raised thousands of dollars for Rising Stars from various foundation and corporate partners. We'll move on to the next slide, but if you have any questions here, you can enter them into the chat box and we'll circle back around at the end. The next strategy that we've utilized with success comes up during the writing process. We'd like to highlight certain club features, particularly those that illustrate a strong organizational foundation. That includes things that show good practices, policies, financial standings, and governance. For example, a club's ability to develop and fund new programs, a club's ability to respond to community needs. For example, one club we work with recently saw a significant increase in its Spanish-speaking membership population. The club responded by bolstering bilingual staff and also by opening an after-school ESL room. We feel that this is a good example of solid practices and something we like to highlight when appropriate. Next, leadership longevity. Many of the clubs we work with have executive directors who have served in that or other club roles for many, many years. We like to show solid governance here. Next, varied board experience. When appropriate, we like to include a line or two about what the board brings to the organization. This might include board members who were once club members themselves. Other board highlights might include the professional capabilities they provide. They might bring a background of a lawyer, of a teacher, financial, whatever they can bring as unique expertise to the board. Another feature of the board that we like to highlight is if a wide range of ages is represented on the board. And then finally, unique facilities. For example, one club that we work with has a splash park and a boxing ring on campus. We like to mention those in the clubhouse description. Another club we work with is steps away from a train station, which makes the club available to a much wider audience. So we often highlight that as well. When writing, we also like to incorporate language. This can be words or phrases from the foundation. For example, if a foundation says they give to programs that help people become educated, contributing members of society, we'll use that phrase again, educated, contributing members of society, in the application. And we'll follow that usage by a couple sentences to explain how the club's work accomplishes this. So once again, we'll move on, but feel free to leave a question in the chat box. Finally, we do whatever we can to make a connection with the foundation. Before applying, if the foundation publishes its phone number or an email address on its website or on foundation directories, we'll reach out to introduce that club. Sometimes we use this opportunity to discuss two programs that we're considering applying for. And we'd like to feel out which one might be best received by the foundation. There are also those foundations that don't provide contact info besides addresses. We've recently tried a new strategy with some of these foundations. After a couple months from the submission date has passed, we write a club update that includes information about what has been going on at the club recently. For example, in a recent club update letter we wrote, we included information about a recent visit from a dentist, an upcoming trip to the UN, and a new reading program that had started at the club. We also included pictures. We just did this in April for one club, and so far have received a gift from one of those foundations. So we'll see how this fares with the rest. So thank you all for giving me the time to share with you some of the strategies we utilize. We have a summary of some of the things that we've talked about. If you have any questions, please feel free to add those to the chat box or contact us after the presentation. And I'll pass it back to Jonathan at this time.
Chelsea, thank you so much. A fantastic presentation and great information. I'd like to just make two highlights because you'll never do any bragging for yourself. You're so humble. If I can ask you a couple of questions in your career working with Boys and Girls Clubs, what have been some of your highlights? If you were giving us the ESPN highlight reel here.
I would say, first and foremost, working with Boys and Girls Clubs has been a pleasure. I know I touched on this earlier when I spoke about leadership longevity, but something I've seen with all of the Boys and Girls clubs that we have worked with is very passionate employees, volunteers, and kids who really dedicate their lives to this. So it has been a pleasure to raise funding for programs for that. Some of the highlights would include the Best Buy Tech Center that we were able to coordinate for a club that brought a range of computers, of other music equipment and things to the club. So that has certainly been a highlight.
Wonderful, thank you, Chelsea. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to open up this this webinar at this time to to seek some engagement from you. You all are specialists in what you do. We feel honored to work with Boys and Girls Clubs because of what Chelsea said. You all bring passion to this that is not seen in other organizations. We do work with other organizations that are not Boys and Girls Clubs, but there is a magic that happens when we work with our club partners. And I'd like to just open up this time if you have any questions about what we do, how we do it, if something came up, or if you're just interested in maybe how we work with our clients or anything. I'm going to open up the floor now, and we can go over those together. How does that sound?
Jonathan, while folks are maybe thinking about questions, I thought I would maybe shoot off some that are very common questions that I usually get, and maybe this could spark some of our participants in asking some questions. But I'm often asked, what is the length of time that we tend to work with Boys and Girls Clubs? And we have managed to build strong relationships with our clients. And like most, if we're delivering and providing excellent service to our clients, we tend to average between 4 and 5 years in terms of retention that most of our clients keep working with us. And as Dan had mentioned, I believe we worked with him for 4 years, and we continue to work with clubs even longer than that. But that is usually a question that is asked to us. But I will pause and see if any of our participants have any questions. I don't see any in the box, but I would like to ask Dan some questions just so that we can hear from someone who has worked directly with us. Dan, I know that you and I would meet regularly, and you would meet with our grant writing team on a very, very consistent basis. But I think with you, Dan, we brought a lot of aspects of our service to you, both, some board development, major donor cultivation. We even did some events for you. But would you be willing to tell our participants, if you could sum up, what was your experience of working with the Grace Group, and what would you say to those that are listening in about our service?
I think it's pretty cut to the chase because of just the responsibilities I had as the ED there on the day-to-day and lean and mean machine, as most clubs are these days. The value added to your group that you brought to our group was extraordinary, only because you could cut to the chase. You've been around the movement and you understood the culture. So a lot of the thinking that was required, if you will, was just passed to you folks because you understood it. You understood triple play. We'd go down the list of all the programming that you folks helped fund. And at the end of the day, whether it was a $50,000 grant or in front of a person that was giving me a $10,000 check, the value added to your day-to-day work in the middle of my other responsibility was invaluable.
Mm. Thank you, Dan. Well, it's interesting. I know that you and I, we've had a lot of laughter and a lot of fun working together, and I always joke and say that we put the fun in fundraising. But, I just have fond memories of being with you with site visits, having our grant writer team with us when we were on the phone with a funder, going over the application or creating, the talking points for when the foundation was going to come and to view the club. I always really sense that what we do, which is really what I believe sets us apart, is that we become part of your team. We're not just a grant writer that, is operating out of a back room or something, but we're part of you. We stand shoulder to shoulder with you, doing the heavy lifting and helping secure the funding so that you guys can do what you do. And I remember, Dan, even at time bringing an idea to the board and saying, hey, what do you think about a fashion show? And we got J.C. Penney's, one of your board members, to agree to do an event. And we've never done anything like that before. but it really proved to be very successful, and that was a great honor.
Yeah, bottom line is you folks owned it. It's a responsibility that I have as the ED with fund development. We did not have a development associate nor a director of such. I was it. I wore 3 hats, and you juggle. And folks that are on the phone from the club know how we juggle. When we get the job done, and so having a set of fresh eyes, having other folks pull in with their respective experience to say, hey, what about this? In the middle of what is very busy, we got about a minute to think about it. I did, and said, hey, that actually would fit, and I've got a board member that could help own that, could help champion that. So case in point, the fundraiser, the speaker, the keynote, showcasing our kids around the fashion show, it was the talk of the town and still is. So it is that type of innovation and creativity that I definitely remember well. It's that thinking that not only brought in a great deal of money, but the relationships key to fund development that were initiated and that are now growing in light of that event. Huge returns for the club. So I'm glad you recalled that event specifically. I get going on a couple fronts, and only fond memories around that, and what I continue to understand because of my continued relationship with the board and with the staff members there. A lot of fine work unpacking. So cheers to that work, Grace.
Thank you so much, Dan. Thank you. Jonathan, I'm going to pass it back over to you.
Thank you, Grace. Thank you, Dan. I again want to thank you all as we start to wrap up here. We're going to do 2 things. Grace is going to talk a little bit about a giveaway that, and if you are on this call or on this webinar and you did not know that this was a part of it, then hey, that's a good surprise. But we're running a giveaway with this with the marketing of this campaign, and what it is we are giving away an experience in New Orleans. If you are going to the national conference this week and you are a participant of this call, then you are entered to win a random drawing of a cooking class sponsored by the Grace Group. We want to send you out to have a good time. Grace is going to talk about that in just a second. I just want to close this out here and just let you know if there were any questions that have come up, or maybe you didn't want to put it in the chat box. We really take kind of the people first, role here. We're all about people. We're all about real relationships. You can email me at jonathan@tggfundraising.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Jonathan Termier. I also run our Facebook group, or our Facebook page, so you can follow the Grace Group on Facebook, where we post upcoming grant deadlines and fundraising news as a source for you to hopefully inspire new grant applications. But also on the screen here, that's Grace's personal cell phone number and her email address, direct email address. If you have any questions, again, we are all about people and the relationship, and we encourage you to reach out. In closing, I would like to thank Chelsea and our Grace Group team for working on this webinar. This is a part of a series called the TGG Fundraising Institute. A copy of this webinar will be recorded and posted online for you all to share with maybe somebody that missed this. We're doing this as a way to, again, inspire clubs to maybe find a new program or a new funder or something. We want to give you something because we believe at the core we just want to help you all out. My last thank you is again to the executive directors and the fundraising teams for the clubs that are joining us today. You all are the fundraising superheroes. We hope to give you some information today to carry on your mission and to keep doing what you're doing. You all do it very well. When we have the opportunity to work with clubs, we all kind of there's a little internal fighting, of who's going to get paired up with the clubs, because we love working with them. You all do great work, and hopefully you took something away today and you're left a little inspired to keep on your mission. But again, thank you so much for joining us today, taking that time, and to keep doing your mission. Grace, for the last minute, I'm going to let you close us out here and tell our participants how they'll know if they are the winner of our giveaway.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Jonathan, and thank you so much to the Grace Group team and to everyone, Dan, for being with us and everyone who joined us. Yes, cooking, because it's all about bonding and celebrating. So New Orleans School of Cooking, you're going to receive a gift certificate to be able to attend that. Please follow the Grace Group on Facebook. The winner will be announced there. And again, thank you all very much for carving this time. I feel like we got to have a little lunchtime with you all. You are all changing the world in the front lines, and we are truly honored to be able to co-labor with you all. I wish you guys to have a wonderful Tuesday, and thanks again. I look forward to connecting with you all. Blessings. Bye for now.